Hello and welcome. Hopefully you can hear us. If you can, please let us know in the chat. But we are back with another edition, a long-awaited edition of the Mountain Outpost podcast. Here, Jam here, your co-host with Skizzle Fresh, Skylar Hall, fresh off of the Western States 100. How you doing, sir? So good to see you. It sounds like people can hear us. Hopefully there's no echo. That was what I was scared of, but all thumbs up. Talk to me, buddy.
That's the dream. Yeah. Things are good. I was dealing with an echo all Saturday while we were doing the Western coverage, so it's nice to not hear myself back in my own headphones because that's very disorienting, especially when it's 4:15 in the morning and you are not nearly awake enough for the task at hand. So, yeah, dude. Yeah, life is good. Still coming down off the Western high and still trying to recover, just like physically. It was a long day. It was a lot of fun, though, a ton of fun. But how are you doing, Mr. Hard Rock? Question mark. What's going on?
Yeah, Hard Rock is a big question mark right now for me. Just moved up to number one on the wait list a couple days ago. Was sick over the last week, so I'm recovering from that. I was sitting on the couch during the Western coverage. And trying to recover from there. Oh, it sounds like our audio is a little bit up and down, so we will try and fix that here.
Yeah, I just take my mic down.
Need more volume. Let's kick it up a notch. Perfect.
Cool. I took mine down a little bit.
Yeah.
So hopefully it works out.
Yeah. So that's my plan. Heading up to Silverton, hopefully the end of next week in advance of the Kendall Mountain Run and Silverton Alpine Marathon events, and then be in town just in case I get my name pulled.
I guess that is the sort of convenient thing for you is you already have to be in town. So it's no weird logistical, oh, should I, shouldn't I, just in case. You don't have to plan for it. It's like you already know you're going to be in Silverton for pretty much the entire month of July. So that does help a bit. It also means that you could run Kendall as probably one of your only training runs for Hard Rock, knowing how your schedule has probably been going. So I won't rush you for that.
Yeah, this is forced me to, make sure I don't skip my runs every day anymore like I have been doing for quite some time. So and I was going to have Kendall on my list regardless. That was a race that my coach and I looked at as, something that's going to at least put something on my race calendar this year. Mm-hmm. And so I'll probably do that as whatever it is. It's on Sunday, 5 days out, kind of my maybe one and only altitude training run. We'll see. Something like that.
Yeah, let it not be your only one. The question is, are you going to go with the sleep high strategy just in case you end up getting pulled, or are you just going to stay in town and
I don't know if I'm going to go out of my way to, drive to the top of Kendall Mountain Run every night, but certainly if I can sleep, the higher I can sleep, the better. But I'm probably not going to overthink it this year and just whatever's most convenient for still having to be in touch with the world and probably do some work and stuff like that. So
I guess that's fair. I don't know what this doing work thing is. It sounds like you've been pretty bored, not getting a whole lot accomplished. So
definitely.
Hey, at least you made it out to Vegas and I got to see you for one night. So yeah, thanks for surviving the bachelor party. Appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, we did.
That's the most we will talk about it.
That's the most we're going to say.
I
feel like for the small amount of time that I was there, I did my duty, and we were out till the sun came up. I have a photo to prove it. So
Yeah, delete that photo. No, it was a good time. Hey, I saw you grooving. I saw you two stepping out there. You had some dance moves. So we've come a long way since like the DDR fiasco of 2014 or whatever year that was. So
Oh
I'm proud of you,
goodness.
buddy. I'm excited to see if you can improve upon those skills in a couple months' time at the wedding itself. So
That's right. That's
well
right.
placed there.
Well, just a reminder, we do have a chat going, so hop in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions. Western States was a big deal. It just happened. Skyler was out there holding down the fort for us this year. I want to hear more from him about his experience out at the race, being part of the live stream on the back end. It was. I will tell you, I woke up, I think, 6 minutes after the start that morning. So I was playing catch up. I didn't catch that you had been on air until later. I had to kind of rewind a little bit. And then we got, I think, one hit at Michigan Bluff before
Hmm.
the camera overheated on you. We'd love to hear about
Man,
that.
we got
And then,
stories.
yeah, it was so nice when you came on air into the evening. I was like, I mean, it was great hearing from Dylan and Corinne all day, but it was like, oh, that's a refreshing. It's refreshing to hear Skylar on the mic and to help guide us into the evening as those top finishers were coming across. So yeah, maybe just give us an overview of how you got involved and what your experience was like.
Yeah, it was I guess, relatively late breaking thing. Uh, Billy Yang, the great Billy Yang, friend of the pod, friend of the running community writ large, he had reached out and was like, "Hey, we're looking for an on-course correspondent. Like, would you be down?" And literally we had that conversation, I think, when I got back from Vegas. So I had like a week and a half heads up, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, I already had Western blocked on my calendar because I was going to be watching it regardless. I was like, might as well go watch it in person. And then yeah, I got up to Olympic Valley on Friday and just kicked it with a couple people. Had a quick production meeting to make sure that I didn't screw it up for them. And then, yeah, bright and early Saturday morning at the start line, my camera guy Dylan, shout out to him, doing the Lord's work out there, trying to run after me as the start line is crazy because it's not a road race. So it's not like, hey, you have to be in specific corrals and at a certain time. It's a trail race, right? Folks will just like show up 5 or 10 minutes before. So to be trying to like find people on the fly to interview, because we didn't have a schedule of like who we are going to interview when. It was literally like me there, like, hey, you like come here. Would you be down to be on the live stream real quick? I like literally Arlen was eating a muffin inside, and I was like, "Can you come outside and just like do this hit real quick?" So it was just nuts, and Dylan's just like chasing after me with the camera, like people are freaking out. But yeah, no, it was wild. And then yeah, we're there for the start. I saw so many folks hop like hiking up early to the escarpment as we were setting up. It was nuts. Like it was legitimately like 150 people up there. Like it was one of the years where like I kind of wish we were there to be a part of that because there were so many people. Like Hoka had like led a dedicated like march up. But yeah, then start line was popping off. Everybody takes off, and you just see like the rush of people going both directions. So you get the rush of people going up the hill, then everybody and their mom sprinting to the car because they need to make it to Robinson Flat, and that drive is not short. It really is you racing your racers. So super excited to be a part of that start line component. And then from there, it was kind of on the fly what we were going to do the rest of the day. So we had originally I was only going to go to Forest Hill for like another on-site element, but that was like 8 hours afterwards. So we did a quick huddle at the track, and Dylan was already at Michigan Bluff just hanging out. And I was like, we might as well go and then like just do like a pre-roll, like, hey, here's what's happening in Michigan Bluff type event. And then we did that. That's what folks kind of saw. Like, it's hot as hell. I got my appropriate diss of bucket hat send. That was the important part. I had one talking point and I nailed it. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
we've already got the chat blowing up about bucket hats.
Yeah, they suck. No, like legitimately, that wasn't just me dunking on bucket hats for the sake of dunking on bucket hats. Like everybody had like the huge brim hats because it was. I mean, you've been to Michigan Bluff, but like unless you were on the edge of the street, like it's completely exposed.
Yep.
And so people are like literally hiding in trees. Like Arlen's crew, like the Homer Simpson meme where he just like fades into the bushes. That's essentially what they were doing. Like it was great.
Well, and it's
But yeah,
like
no,
pavement there too, so it's just kind of
exactly.
reflecting up at you. It's a lot.
It is absolutely a lot. Yeah, and so that's when we ran into the overheating issue of the camera. We had literally brought it out from under the canopy for I don't know 3 minutes, getting ready to go live, and all of a sudden Dylan's just looking at me like, oh snap, hold on, we got to like takes it back. Screen is black, like he can't turn it on or off anymore. We're just like. So shout out to everybody working the Michigan Bluff aid station because we had the bright idea of if we dunk the camera in ice, we might be able to like revive it. And so we had to go to our favorite house. They're getting ready to drink margaritas. I took all their ice and a cooler. We got a trash bag from the aid station, put the camera, and we're not talking a GoPro. We're not talking a gimbal. We're talking like a TV
Like
production
a cinema
camera,
or something.
like a cinema camera.
Yeah.
Bag it in a garbage bag, just like fill the cooler with ice and just like dunk it in, put the cooler into the car, turn the car on like full AC blast. Like 15 minutes later, we pull it out, it turns on, we're like, thankfully, awesome. That's when Hayden comes through and like we get to do like those couple quick hits. Then it overheats again. And we're like, well, no matter what, we have to like house it to Forest Hill anyway, because we've already got folks coming through. Then we get to Forest Hill, camera kind of working. We're like, this may or may not happen. But the thing that folks that are watching any live stream ever, they always complain like, oh, it's laggy, oh, it's choppy. Forest Hill is like a town, but it's a town of probably a couple thousand people, and we doubled the population of that town. So their cell signal is just like not good. So even if you're trying to use your phone, it was like lackluster at best. So us trying to get a link up wasn't happening off the camera.
So that's the question. Were you off of like cell reception for both of those hits, or did you have some other like school Wi-Fi or anything that you were able to?
We were on the cell and Wi-Fi at the start line. We were on Wi-Fi, luckily, at Michigan Bluff, but we were going to have to go off of cell at Forest Hill, which was just like not happening. And we lucked out that there was like an additional Starlink that was like between locations, but it was where the Starlink had been positioned was just like too exposed for the camera because we didn't have a pop-up that we could like guard it and then pull it out, do the quick again. So it would overheat again. Exactly. So it was an absolute mess. So we sent Dylan back down. I was like, I'll just text live updates and like interview people on the fly and then just like send it to Devo and Corinne in the chat and they can relay it to the crowd. And then that's when the internet went down at the school, which was an experience. Because I mean, obviously, like we've done live streams where we're like, oh no, like the internet's not great. The reason why the internet went down at the school was like it just like exemplified the day, which was more stuff overheating. So like by the time I got back to the track, there was literally like a router that was under a canopy and on top of just like an ice, like the ice packs that come in your food kits.
Yeah.
Those like bricks. They literally just like put the router on top of that. Like they had to do everything they could to cool this thing down. And then like, everybody's like, oh, like I'll get a GoPro and run out there. Like, nah, there was a production truck. There was a ton of apparatus that was like in the mix. It was like 115 in that truck. Like it was disgusting when I walked in. But you know, we did what we had to do. They figured it out. They were troubleshooting on the fly. And yeah, by the time I got back down to the track and got a quick bite to eat, I was like, all right, these folks are coming through, you know, Point of Rocks, and we got to get ready to do a finish line thing. So, I went from being on camera to just like running around asking people questions and texting old school. I felt like I run far without photos. And then I actually did run into Megan Hicks, and she was just looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" I was like, "Your job." I'm sorry. And then
I mean,
and
that
then at
is
the
what I
drive,
was
yeah.
doing too. Is like when there was those moments where they didn't have anything, it was like, well, you just go to I Run Far. It's kind of like the backup.
Yeah. I mean, and shout out to Iron Far. Like they have been doing this forever, and they had like a stellar crew out there, which was very helpful because we were basically validating what we were seeing in person, being like, did we miss somebody coming through? Or the live stream volunteers that were at each of the aid stations. Like those aid stations can be very long, and so it gets difficult when you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna follow this one person to their crew, so we have that live shot, but then you can have a runner come in behind you, and like you never know. So we did it. I Run Far, validated. Everybody was copacetic. So yeah, they crushed it, and then yeah, the finish line was just on the fly because I mean we're watching along with everybody else. We're hey, this person's through Roby. Oh, there's another person through Roby 90 seconds later. Like, how's this going to play out? Can the bike find them and then like bring them down? It was mayhem. So by the time I was in the studio, because Debo and Corinne were basically stationed at the finish line because people were coming in so close to each other. Like I would literally look across the track and that's when the Arlen kickdown happened. Because I saw him coming, I was like, he's moving
Yeah.
damn fast.
I think you jumped into the booth like what right after that or like right then, and because
right then
we were I was sitting there and me and Matt were texting back and forth and we're like, because they're doing, I get why they do it. They want to, like, it's tradition. You do the interviews right on the track so that the people there can hear from them. And it's like, but basically we kind of missed that commentary on the live stream to like explain what the heck was happening with like Arlen coming in and Tyler on his heels.
Yeah.
And it got kind of lost a little bit. So I was happy you jumped in, and it's definitely something I think to consider in the future. Like if you are going to have, say, Dylan and Corinne hop out of the booth and go onto the track, maybe that's the point in time where you tag in your backup commentators. Like you got to have someone there in the booth that can like keep an eye on those, those top teners coming in, because it gets hard. It's hard to keep track of it all, I think, when you're like going back and forth.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was banking on how dense the top tens on both sides were going to be.
Yeah.
I think, if you take the past couple years, like even Jim being like an anomaly, like 2 to 3, 3 to 4, you typically have enough time to do the interview, be like, and the next person's going to be in like 5 to 10 minutes after that.
Right.
But this was just like bang, bang, bang. And we had to adjust on the fly. Like literally, I wasn't supposed to be in the studio. I wasn't supposed to have a role at that point. I was just like there to assist. And like Billy, like luckily I had my earpiece still in. And Billy might have been one of the other producers was like, Skylar, get in the booth. And I was like, okay. Like,
yeah, they saw it just like we saw it from the couch at home, where it's like, we need someone in the booth, like calling this, as they're coming in.
No dead air.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. But then my point of view from the studio is better than it would be at the finish line, because the finish line has all the banners and whatnot. But even in the studio, you're still trusting your line of sight across 70 yards, basically, like when they come through that gate.
If you miss, you miss 20 seconds there past him behind you at that point, where
correct,
you can't even see it because it's kind of off to your left. The studio is, the finish line is directly behind you. You're facing forward, and like you kind of have to look catty corner to see them coming onto the track.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not a system where I can just like walk off the stage like onto the infield. Like it doesn't allow for that sort of thing. So but that was the thing. I was like, I'm as like hyped up as everybody else watching this. Like, is that doesn't look like his crew? That's somebody else behind him. Like it was one of those moments where like I was also in disbelief and like trying to hold it together. But it happened multiple times where you had, folks bombing down that I mean, it's a half mile downhill directly into the gate. And then it's just a 240 or 250 meter sprint at that point. So I was geeking out and I'm glad that I was there, because, I was able to sort of take the pressure off of Debo and Corinne of like having to sprint from the finish line back to the booth, talk about it, run back out, and do all that. But then it also meant like I got to see the monitor, so I could see what you guys were all seeing live and being like, oh, like this is about to be a hot mess coming down off of Roby. So yeah, it was a good time. And then the rest of the night was just like, hey, we've all been up since 2:30 this morning. Do you need a quick break? How many Red Bulls can we respectively drink? All right, and it was just cycling out until Sally and Billy took the late shift. And I don't know how Billy made that work. Like that dude should have been asleep hours before he got on, and he was like, all right, cool, let's cover the late shift. So nuts, absolutely insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can see what's happening.
Yeah, we got a little
like just out of frame. That's hilarious. Yeah. But all told, like it was such a fun experience. Exhausting in its own right for sure. But typically in the past, when the two of us have been out there, you're sort of focused on videoing your section, right? So like I've historically had that section from El Dorado up to Michigan Bluff. So I'm just like doing repeats up and down that hill following the leaders. So the ability to like, one, have the coverage in ear like the entire day. Like basically the way it worked is I had a feed that was just the producers in the truck and Debo and Corinne. So like if there was like audio coming in from any of the volunteer cameras, like I wouldn't get that, but I could hear exactly what they were saying. So even when I was like driving between places, like I would just have that on in the car so I could like stay up to date on what was happening in the race. So it's a very different experience than when typically we would just be like, okay, like I Run Far said this person went through Devil's Thumb 20 minutes ago. So like, let me just be ready for when they come here, and then like sprint and follow back. And I don't know who will come after them, yada, yada, yada.
So you're kind of hearing like Billy and the folks that were in the production studio. There's kind of like, all right, we're going to this feed. We're going to this feed. Are they like talking about that kind of stuff? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. And I mean, a lot of it was self-directed by Debo and Corinne in that respect, because they could be like, hey, if we could get, share my screen, or if we can get footage on like XYZ. But yeah, the booth had, all of the different cameras, the drones, things like that. So to be able to track all of that was incredibly helpful. And then I couldn't see anything while I was out there. So it was just going off of what they were saying and trying to read and react. So it was good. It was a good time though. Like it was just overall fun, exhausting, but the whole team, the miscellaneous people we got to meet in between, got to see old friends. They were just like, what are you doing? I was like dying. But it's 20 less miles than I normally run on a Western weekend, because normally I'm running after people. And this time I got to just like walk and be like, you, Coop, question for you. Answer this for me, please, and thank you. Like it was physically less taxing in that respect, but it was hot as hell. And I got real dark, and it was very entertaining. So yeah, glad to be a part of it. Thanks to the team for thinking I was capable enough to hold it down. And yeah, super excited to hear people's thoughts, because after that I basically went dark for a grip, just because I had other things I had to do. So it sounds like people enjoyed the live stream. At least that felt like that's what the commentary was while we were on. But I'm sure people have thoughts, feelings, emotions about the after action. And hey, it's all about trying to improve the feed for next year. Not that I'm on it. I have no idea. But hey, we're all trying to progress, and then take what we learned, or at least what I learned at Western, and bring it to Javelina, Black Canyon, like, the stuff that we do on our side of the house. And also just like, while we're on the topic, the number of people who are asking me like, do you work for Aravaipa still? Are you and Jamil cool? Like, what are you doing here? I was like, we're chilling. Like, one, I'm not an Aravaipa employee. Let's start there. But two, like, we're all advancing the sport here. Like, there's no beef. There's no turf battles. This isn't like, ABC versus Fox or something. Like, we're all trying to cover the sport in the community and like elevate the game. And so I'm happy that I was able to have a role in Western, which is like not an Aravaipa race. We did it from Jackpot, obviously. And I'm happy that we're getting more eyes on the sport, because people have been craving it. people seem to have loved it. That was different.
We had an
And
attack over here, so
exactly. And we're trying to
yeah,
trying to
no, I
advance the
mean, I
plot.
was contemplating coming out. I didn't have a defined role this year until I got sick, but I was contemplating just coming out and supporting the live stream, helping Billy, maybe flying a drone. We had I can't claim him as our own, just like I can't really claim you, but Troy Wicks, shout out to him. He's kind of
Yeah.
built up his skills at Javelina or at Black Canyon and Cocodona live streams. He's
Dude.
a licensed drone pilot. He comes and volunteers with us. He was out there this year. He was the main drone pilot. And
Hmm.
man, I would love to be part of it next year if I can. And yeah, it's all about growing the sport, helping each other out. We're learning. These guys are leveling it up. I mean, I think one of my favorite moments was, besides seeing you on camera, Skylar, but hey, you good?
This is what happens. This is why we do the pod late at night typically.
Yeah. We're trying to get some attention over here as well. So was seeing the top three women in Devil's Thumb together when they were all kind of like came in, and it's like that's a pretty remote area,
Yeah.
and like we wouldn't have that shot in the past, so that was a pretty special moment.
It was hilarious hearing that moment happen. It was hilarious hearing that moment happen because again, like I couldn't see anything, but just like Debo's natural reaction, just like how excited he got. He's like, "This is amazing." I was like, "All right, something clearly super awesome is happening." But yeah, like these are like it's California, but a lot of places that Western States runs like don't have broadband. Like the fact that we were getting those types of images is like uh no small feat. Like I think most people understood that. Like there's a reason we've never seen these footage or these elements before. Is because like these are remote. Like you don't have Google Maps to get to these places. Like the cell signal drops, and you're just like, all right, I hope that this GPS is correct, and you still get to that aid station. But yeah, it was insane to get some of those images in places that hell were parts of the course that I had never seen. And then Troy just we had a conversation around like how do you fly this in Auburn without like you're in a residential area that's like adjacent to a real city. How do you do this safely without all of us getting fired? So yeah, it was super entertaining, and he's always one for jokes and just general hilarity. So it was good to catch him for a little bit out there, and yeah, I think it definitely adds to the contour of it, for newer folks just understanding the race and like how absurd it is, and then for folks who've been around for a while, just like appreciating the back and forth of it all. And it's not just a time trial, right? It's not just, hey, who can run this the fastest? Like at the end of the day, like it's still a race. And to see some of those battles play out in real time in ways that we usually would not get because we just get a time split at an aid station, get another time split at the next aid station. I think it was, it allowed us to geek out a lot. And I'm really happy that we were able to make that happen. And I look forward to the next live streams. The UTMBs have always been good at this because they are e-biking everywhere. But for us stateside to be able to tell the competitive story, because I think now folks understand like this. Yeah, times are impressive. Maybe it's because we got so hyped on FKTs for so long the past couple of years when races weren't happening. But like at the end of the day, like if it comes down to a 200-meter kick at the end of 100 miles, if there's a 100-mile race versus a 100.2-mile race, like it positions flip. I think that folks can really geek out over that and appreciate that, whether they're a recreational 5K runner who also understands the necessity to kick, all the way through your 200-mile specialist. So this is our F1 moment. This is our Drive to Survive. Let's go.
What were your takeaways just from like how the field or like how the runners did themselves?
I didn't do great on fantasy, so there's that.
Well, I don't think any of us did.
I feel like a number of people had inside information that like I just was not. I could have prepared better as an on-course co-respondent apparently, get there earlier and just like start interviewing folks on the background so I can improve my fantasy ranking. I think, and I mentioned this, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this, like in the late night, sort of like as the top 10 women were coming in, but the guys' side of the race just seemed like they played it a lot smarter. You didn't have Hayden or Jared rip off the front like I expected them to. I think a lot of people thought that they would like drag it out, cowboy style. And I mean, when Adam Kimball was leading, I was like, this is the person who knows this section the most. Like, he has run this thing so many times. This is literally his backyard. If he's up there in front and everybody's just like queuing off of him, then like people are being smart. Like they know exactly how to prepare themselves for the day ahead. I talked to Arlen like before we went live on the live stream, and he was saying, if I'm behind Camille when we get to the top of escarpment, I know I'm doing okay. Yeah, like he flat out said that. He's like, if I'm ahead of her, I've gone too hard. Like I just need to be somewhere behind Camille. Turned out he was like right behind her, and obviously he had a phenomenal day. So I think the guys' side really just played it smart for that first, that first 37 miles or so. Hayden, ballsy move in the canyons there. Did not expect him to push the advantage as hard as he did, but like if you're gonna play to your strengths, like that's probably the part of the course that he should excel at.
Well, I think it was Jim that was telling him to push it in the canyons or something.
Exactly.
And who knows, like maybe if Jim had not said that, he would have chilled a little bit more and maybe had a little bit more to give at the end. Who knows? It's tough to say.
I mean, it's tough to say. That section was crazy hot, but so was Forest Hill down Cal Street. So
because it seems like up until then it was kind of a pack still, right? Like they were all closed together, and then Hayden kind of blew it apart a little bit.
Yeah, which I mean, somebody has to do at some point, right? Like we see it in track races, where it's like somebody's going to do a breakaway. The Tour de France starts this week, right? You're going to have a breakaway. Like somebody has to do something.
Feel very pedestrian is like that thing I kept thinking about. Without Jim there, Jim's not pushing the pace. Everyone was just kind of backing off, and like, no one really wanted to go for it. And I think everyone was like probably a little bit relieved. It's like, oh, we can all kind of run our own race here, and we don't have to feel that pressure to go for it. We can just kind of kick back and kind of see how we can ease into this thing and kind of run our own races.
Absolutely. Whether you win by 5 seconds or 50 minutes, it's still a win, right? So it's doing just enough to get through it. And to Hayden's credit, like I don't know if this got picked up on the video, because I think that was about where like my audio started spazzing out as well. But he looked super fresh in Michigan Bluff, like he did a full change, tying his own shoes. They were putting sunblock on him, cooling him off. Like it was a well-oiled machine, and doing all of that, he was out in under 2.5 minutes. And so I was like, all right, if you're pushing and you're still like this, within yourself, like I expected him to have a much better day than he had the previous year. I was like, you got to super screw up at this point to do worse than you did last year. So that was good. I was a little bit concerned for Jared at that point. He had a very quick pit stop in Michigan Bluff. He had the full ice bandana and sort of like the neck pillow looking setup. And I mean, like his face looked fine, but just from the spryness that I've come to expect for like biomechanically as he runs was like not there. And I was like, all right, maybe he's just a little trash coming out of the canyons. But, then seeing how the rest of it played out, I was like, that was probably the first signs of we may have gassed it a bit too hard. And then like Arlen was just cruising. I actually, I had a conversation with, I assume his brother. I never actually asked who this was, but his pacer that he had coming out of Forest Hill. He was hilarious. He was like, I don't know where I'm allowed to pick him up at. I'm like, you can go all the way up the street. So literally I just like walked him as far as he could go to pick up Arlen. And we were just like chatting about life and just like, being being bros, I guess. And then, Arlen came through and his pacer literally was just like, he's going to even split this thing. Like his whole job is just like to be as consistent as possible. And I was like, then your job is to not let him do what everybody else does on Cal Street and like bomb it, like, and thrash his legs. Like, just make sure if you're getting dropped, you're probably going too hard. And we saw how he just continued to move up through the field in that back half. And I was like, all right, cool. I don't think it was my advice to his pacer, but like, I think I was able to calm his pacer down because he was nervous as hell. It was great. So yeah, Arlen had a good day. And again, it's just a testament. Like, the guys who played it smart throughout, were rewarded in that last 20 miles with being able to like make big moves. And like Adam cruising, like, there was never a point where it looked like he put his foot on the gas. He was just like consistent and methodical. And then he got to the point where he was, they were, going down Cal Street together. And then he's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm just going to maintain. And it's not like I guess they sprinted in, right? He didn't like kick the last 20 miles or something, but he just maintained his effort. And like, it showed off, and he was just cruising. Like, it literally looked like he was not pressed when he came through those last 2 miles. So yeah, I think on the guy side, much less chaos than I expected. Women's side, I had no idea how this whole thing was going to play out, because like you have, I mean, same thing on the guy side. Like, you don't have a returning champion, but you have like folks who've done this a lot of times, and so there's a lot of institutional course knowledge out there. And then women typically run smarter when it comes to these types of things. And so it was very interesting to see like how those packs formed, like who aligned, right? Like, we used to think of like the Casey and Magda pack, and like they would always kind of work together for quite some time. But it was kind of a new arrangements. They were setting themselves up. And I was like, oh, like, it was like Keely, Emily, and Ruth was also in that pack at one point. It was just like, that's not a connection. It's like, they're not the same. They don't train together. They're not the same sponsored. I don't think they've done a ton of races together before. So it's just like interesting to see like how these types of things came together. But yeah, like the women's race played out pretty bold. So I think from my perspective, it was just, you could see the wheels turning, and like, it wasn't, again, like anybody like really pressed. From my perspective, it was like, you might make an argument that like Camille might have gone a bit too hard, like coming through like double thumb to Forest Hill or something. Hence why she had to take that break on Cal Street. But I think it was really just like who stayed on top of their nutrition and hydration the most, who was, again, being the most consistent throughout. Like, when I saw Camille coming through Forest Hill, pacerless, and like had no bottles in hand as she was like coming, she was probably about half a mile out from the aid station as she was passing the fire station. I was like, that's interesting. Like, I would expect her to at least like have a bottle in hand, finishing this off. But the fact that she went basically at least 4 miles, potentially 8 miles, and had already zeroed out her water or was not carrying enough water, I was like, that's a little interesting. But I mean,
which athlete are you talking about there?
Camille. Yeah, she was coming through Forest Hill.
It did seem like she was a little light on like capacity with her potentially. Is that what you're mentioning?
Yeah. So like I was saying, coming into Forest Hill, she had no bottles in hand. And between Michigan Bluff and Forest Hill is 8 miles, but there's like a aid station in between. So like, there's no reason to be out of water. It's not a terribly long stretch. But when she came past me and like had nothing in hand, I was like, that's an interesting decision. I feel like most people typically are trying to finish off that last water as they're coming down Forest Hill Road towards the aid station, just so they can like refill everything in one go or swap out. So I was a little worried at that point, but it's Camille, and she was already through what is typically her worst part of the course. So I was like, yeah, she'll figure it out. And, she faded back in the overall standings, but like, I think it's still a pretty solid day for her, all things considered. And you can't be too mad.
Huge improvement, and I think for me a big moment was seeing her topping out at Devil's Thumb in fourth place, minutes off the lead. I was like, oh, she's making a statement here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think so. I think I saw, she was just carrying those like little tiny water bottles, and I think
Mm-hmm.
a race like Western States on a hotter than normal year, like top 10 hottest years, like you can't run light and fast out here the whole way. Like I think carrying a little
Yeah.
bit more water, even you can dump on yourself in between. I think she was cooling herself down from what I heard at some of the
Mm-hmm.
aid stations, like dumping cold water on her head. But I think you need a little bit more. Someone here in the chat says Camille does actually hide bottles, one or two in her naked belt and one on
Mm-hmm.
her top. But I still think it's maybe not enough. Like those little bottles maybe need more. That
Yeah.
we're just talking from the sidelines here. We don't know, but
Yeah.
it does seem like she had to lay down for a while at one of the aid
Mm-hmm.
stations, possibly being dehydrated or sick and got behind. So you just don't want to do that to yourself at a race like Western States when you know it's going to be hot. Like, why even chance it? Just carry a little bit more. That's my takeaway.
Yeah.
Gene Ives says not as many women in the top 10 and 20 as last year.
Last year was a special occasion, right? 15 aside. I mean, we still had 12, if off the top of my head, I want to say 12 women in the top 30, which is damn impressive when you think about how dense that guy side was. You didn't have a woman in the top 10 overall this year, but the fact that once you get past the absurdity that was the like 90-minute spread of the guys' top 10, like the women were right there. If if this was like a second team all league, like women are all up in that.
When they
So
performed, like it was probably like the best top 10 finish from women
oh,
ever.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just that I think the men, maybe didn't blow apart as much as they normally do without being strung out by Jim.
Correct. Yeah, and we were talking about that, and Corinne was like making a big point of this, which was, other than Jim last year, there was one other guy under 16 hours or something like that. I'd have to go back and double check that. But like it was a huge gap between Jim and everyone else, and what was a pretty hot year, and that just didn't play out this year. Like the front end was 40 minutes slower or whatever, but it was incredibly compressed where your 10th finisher was still well ahead of 10th from last year. And then the women, again, like they played to their strengths. We had a lot of attrition last year. A lot of dudes blew up. And this year, not as many did. And the women in the overall standings might have been a little bit lower, but you still have 12 or so women in the top 30. And like you can't be mad at that. And that's with, two notable potential, top 10 folks also dropping, right? Keely was clearly in position to also be in that top 30, and was looking great other than obviously the jacked up ankle. And, like if a Lucy or a Tessa comes in healthy, like you wholly expect that they would be able to withstand and maintain where they were as well. So yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on like the number of women in that, because like they had an all-star performance. It was the fastest 10th place finisher. It was the closest, like one of the closer spreads, 1-10. The Masters record almost went down. It was only missed by 5 minutes on the women's side. Like there's women are showing up and showing out. And whether that's a function of competitive equity, like across the women's space, whether that's because you have more ability to race your way in within distances that are more akin to a Western States length, like i.e. the 100-mile distance at Javelina, or if that's pregnancy deferrals and things like that. Like there's so many opportunities for us to continue to see this elevation of the women's side, to where it would not surprise me the next super hot year. Like if there was a record hot heat year, it would not surprise me, based on how well the women have historically run, if there were more women in the top 30 than guys. Because you'd have this like huge attrition rate on the guy side, and the women would be like, "Yeah, we're not dumb."
Wasn't that what happened last year?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I would actually imagine there would be 16 plus women in the top 30 if it ended up being a record heat year, because like the women's side is getting closer to the men's side regardless. Like we saw it at a jackpot. We've seen women winning outright more often in not just 200 milers, but like actually moving down to the 100-mile distance now.
Well, Elsa McDonald, who was, your second, challenging that women's masters, top 10 all time at Western States now with her run this year. We have two of those, the first two women were both in the top 10 all time. This is Ruth's second run in the top 10 all time.
Yeah.
And she just won Whiskey Basin outright in April as a lead into Western States this year.
Yeah. So like between the women just getting closer to the men overall and their historical propensity to run smarter, more not even necessarily tactical, but just like practical races, I think, it would not surprise me if we get a record heat year here in the next, 3 to 5 years and we end up with more women in the top 30 than men. Just I'll make that statement now and feel wholly confident that will stand the test of time.
Nice. Well, I don't want to take up too much time today. I feel like, do you have anything else you want to cover Western States wise today? I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it was solid start to finish. Golden hour, always rough. I was like in a hotel room, it's like watching the last people coming in. It's been like brought to tears. I'm like, come on, people, like y'all, I've had too little sleep for y'all to be tugging on my heartstrings like this. So, it's gonna be wild to really go back and like look through the results, look through the footage, appreciate it with like fresh eyes, and then see what these folks do. Like, hey, top 3 earn their way into UTMB this year or next year. So we'll see if they take that offer up. And I think that people are just super hyped and want to come back. I mean, we had some notable people who were just outside the top 10 that very well could have been in the top 10.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jeff Colton and your number 11's Jeff Colt and Anne-Marie Madden, there on knocking on the door. And man, Adam Peterman, rising star here. Like, it's crazy to think like a year ago at States, he hadn't even run an ultra yet. Like, that's how kind of off the radar he was. Like imagine someone watching the race this year, they could be next year's champion and they're not even in the sport yet. That's crazy to think about.
I mean, between U.S. track championships and happening the same weekend as Western, and then Worlds happening in the U.S., like maybe there's some people who are like, I can't do that on the track, but let me go like 10 times further, 15 times further on trails, and that's my jam. And hey, somebody gets inspired. Or we end up with somebody who's like 12th at USA's who's like, all right, I'm just going to go to the trails and do this thing. So I did see some road athletes out there. At Forest Hill, I saw Lexi Pappas hanging out, saw Frank Lara.
She was supposed to be pacing Lucy.
Yep. Yeah, Ultra rolled deep. But I'm like, it's weird seeing, folks that I, most notably road athletes in my head, and then there's like, they're out at Western supporting and cheering. And, I think that there's more eyes on the MUT space coming from, other areas of the running community. And so
it's just fun. I mean, it's a good time. I don't blame them,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, hell, Alex Nichols, right? Like his whole thing is, I ran, had a good time. I preferred the trails. And so like, that's how I ended up here. And I think that's true for a lot of college athletes. And, if some people will say like, follow the money, but like running is a sport where a lot of people just follow the passion. And if somebody can maintain a basic living and rock up like an Adam Peterman, then hell, it could all get super weird super quickly, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. A couple things in the chat. We got Jeff Iosa says Grand Slammers lost 2 runners, I guess, at States. So,
Oh man,
the
okay.
Grand Slam for the oldest 100 milers, you have 5 races to choose from. You got to do 4 of them, including Wasatch is required. So, a lot of people, if they get into Western States, they like to go for the Slam because you can kind of put together, an incredible summer of running. Or some people will skip Western because it's too hard to get into and they'll do Old Dominion instead. But it sounds like 2 of the folks going for the Slam this year were drops from the race. And then someone really wants us to talk about Zach Miller's win. He won the Andorra 100K, which I think kind of took the place of the Ronda del Sims, which no longer happens. And Zach
that makes sense.
Zach hasn't raced, I think, in ultra
2019?
since 2019, he said.
Yeah.
And he's had like a long bout with injury. So that's huge, man. Like to win,
Yeah.
like, dude, Andorra trails are no freaking joke. It is brutal out there. I think 100K, he won in like 14 and a half hours. They started at night, ran through the whole night. So probably an incredible event out there. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thought Zach was like washed up. We just hadn't seen him piece it together,
but he's been
right?
Struggling,
it's sort of
for
exactly
a couple years. So for him to kind of pull it all together is a good sign.
Yeah, I mean the 2022 version of Anton's return. Like I get like it's kind of like we
where did
know
Anton
it's still
go
there.
after that? Is he coming back again?
That is an open question that you can scour the internet for that answer. I do not know it, but I think if Zach can stay healthy and just like piece it together, like he has all the tools, and more importantly, has just like the mental fortitude to just like do it, just go full gas on any area of life he wants, but specifically, when it comes to running. And so, this is good. This is a confidence booster. This is a rust buster for Zach.
Exactly.
And so I wholly expect him to, be smart about it, right? He's never been somebody who's like, I'm going to race too much and like put myself in a spot of bother. But I think that this will be a necessary confidence booster for him to know, to prove to himself, that success can still be had. And now it's just picking and choosing what he wants to get into. And I mean, a lot's happened in the last 3 years. UTMB and Hard Rock and like these mountain ultras have gotten pretty insane. But hey, if he's wants to spin the wheels, stateside, do the JFKs of the world again, do, some just like faster stuff. He has that opportunity as well. It's just a function of like what he wants to get into, what continues to ignite that passion, and then he'll excel at it. I'm not worried about him, but I'm super excited to see what's next on the calendar and just watch him demolish that as well.
For sure. Awesome. Well, I think we'll probably wrap things up for this show. What are you drinking, sir? We didn't get into that. I'm not drinking anything, but
yeah. Well, it's 5 o'clock, or it was 5 o'clock when we started, so totally Margaritaville status. Actually, I was staying in Reno for Western, so I went to my favorite Reno brewery, which is Imbibe, and I got this Freshly Pal that had to survive in the back of my rental car for the entirety of Western States coverage, and then at the airport for like a day after that. So it's still good. The fact that it survived all those temperatures in the back of a car and is still good is a testament to how quality their beer is. So if you're ever in Reno, Imbibe, check them out. Small little shop, but their stuff is so good.
Nice. Awesome.
That's
well, yeah, I will prepare for the next show by getting something unique to share as well. Promise you that. Well, Skylar, thanks for your time today, and let's do this more on the regular.
Yeah, man, you started that outro like I was a guest on a podcast, and I don't like that at all. So,
all right.
Thanks for coming today. Yeah, dude, it's what we do.
It's not a guest show. This is not one of those.
No, we're back. I mean, we could get guests if people really wanted to, but nah, man, we got to catch up and just, I mean, hell, I've seen you in person for 22 hours in the last 5 months.
Yeah, like this year, I think, for the most part. So it's
yeah,
not enough time.
So since Black Canyon, yeah. So yeah, no, we gotta catch up. The mountain world awaits. Hey, we got U.S. Nationals coming up here in like 3 weeks. We got Hard Rock, we got Kendall, and then we got all the August and September races.
Mount Marathon coming up too.
Mount Marathon's happening,
Monday,
yeah.
So man, keep an eye out for that.
Well, we gotta get back on our grind, and so we're doing it. It's happening. We got our own running that we got to stay on top of. We got to hold each other accountable, because if we're not on this podcast, I can't harass you to run. And look what happened. We stopped the podcast, and then you just fell off the cliff.
Yeah, it was not good.
This is the only way that we can keep you functional. And then my body fell apart. But hey, that's not the podcast fault. That's me being an IPOS. So we're coming back, baby, on the podcast in the running world, and it's going to be great. So thank you all in the live chat, watching the stream, for joining us. If you're listening after the fact, love you too. Feel free to join us when we do hop on live. Apparently, we put a little notification on YouTube, like, hey, this is going to be at this time. We actually give you guys a heads up.
I've been getting on that. Like, I love making my little thumbnail, throwing it up there a couple days in advance.
I'm here for it. Yeah, no, I literally turned on YouTube this morning and was like, oh, I guess we're doing this today.
Can't back out now. Oh, it pops up. Yeah, no, I dig it. I like doing that kind of stuff. And I think I even sent you a calendar invite. So we're getting real official here.
Very confusing. You sent it for a room that clearly I'm not in, but hey, as long as you remember.
Well, it's we have to reserve the rooms at our office so people don't double book it. You can book an asset. Anyways, it's a great thing. So.
Look at you running a business.
And here's a comment from Julian here in the chat. True hard rocker Jam 2022. So I'll leave with this. That is kind of my focus the next couple weeks here. So I am technically not yet a true hard rocker, according to someone. I don't know. They say you aren't a true hard rocker till you run it both directions. And all 5 of my finishes are counterclockwise direction. So first on the wait list for the clockwise direction in an even year. This could be it. And we'll see what happens. 2 weeks from tomorrow, Hard Rock kicks off.
Yeah, if you could just assume you're in practice.
So I did 7 miles yesterday. Okay, I'm supposed to do 8 today. I've done 2.5 so far. We're well on our way.
You got a treadmill. You're good.
Let's do
it. You can figure it out. We can have the little climbing all over that while you're running. That'll be quite the experience. So appreciate him jungle gymming in the back. But yeah, dude, let's keep this going. Both the pod and the broader. We'll connect next week for you all. We'll get you guys hyped on the things that are happening in the running space. There's so much that's happened in the last 4 months that we should probably also just
we should do a checkup, and I'll make sure I have a beverage to accompany the evening.
Attaboy. And then then the week after that is Hard Rock week. So we'll play that one by ear about how that one's going to go.
We'll see. I mean, I have the setup on my laptop now, so it's definitely possible that we could do a check-in. I've got a Starlink as well. So, I mean, we could just do a broadcast from 13,000 feet if we want to. It'd be great.
Yeah, man, listen, if I got to fly to Albuquerque and drive 5 hours to do it in person because we can't fit 2 people on the screen, I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. So, but no, it'll be awesome. But again, thank you all for joining us in video or audio form. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you get the notification when we put it up that we're going to be coming live at you. Hit that bell for the actual notification. That's the win. Like the video, because apparently that helps people find this after the fact. And then, tell a friend to tell a friend. We're back, baby. So let's make this whole thing a party, and let's just enjoy the summer of 2022, the summer of us, the summer of hard rocking, the summer of running, the summer of love. Let's spread all the goodwill out there. Thank you all. He's been Jam. I've been Skizzle Fresh. This has been a podcast, and we will catch you guys